Hey there everybody, King Kanji here once again with a great new video idea for us to discuss today. Today we're discussing when were 17 and 18 kidnapped and turned into androids in the Dragon Ball timeline. If you do like the art in the thumbnail and you'd like to commission any Dragon Ball artwork for yourselves from myself, feel free to direct message me at King Kanji on Twitter for more info and pricing. Link is in the description section below. First off, I've got Mark, ReelTalk Productions here with me, or ReelTalk. So why don't you say hi, man?
What's up, everybody? Always good to be here. Thank you once again for having me on the channel, Kanji.
And next up, of course, we have somebody who needs no introduction. We have MJxTV with us, man. Why didn't you say hi?
Hi.
Is it MJxTV or is it like Hunter x Hunter where you don't say the X?
You don't say the X, but I'll let Kanji roll with it.
Well, maybe it's a Keith. Maybe it's MJxTV. So basically, the idea of this, as I'm sure you've seen by the title, is we're trying to work out where exactly in the timeline that Dr. Gero actually went and kidnapped Android 18 and 17, or Lapis and Lazuli as they were referred to back then, and to find out where it sort of fits in the Dragon Ball continuity, because it's got to be around somewhere after Goku has defeated the Red Ribbon Army, but it's got to be before Android 17 and 18 can get too old. So I'm going to quickly reel off my theory of how and when I think it likely transpired, and then I'll pass it off to MJ and Mark to receive their thoughts, ideas, and criticisms. Obviously, if you guys listening will leave your thoughts as well as to whether you think it could work, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll be sure to check those out. Also, let me know if you like the artwork I did for the video conceptualizing how I think it would have appeared. If you like my artwork, you can buy prints, keyrings, and more from my website, www.wellkingkanji.com. Anyway, here goes. I think that the only conceivable time and place that it actually could have fitted into the continuity is actually rather creepy, but it makes sense to me anyway. I think the kidnapping of Lapis and Lazuli by Dr. Gero had to happen around the Piccolo Daimao arc, after he'd taken over King's Castle, and made all crime legal and consequently released all prisoners from jail. Now I know that this period of time didn't actually last all that long, but this would have been Dr. Gero's ultimate chance to kidnap victims in order to do cybernetic experiments on them, without causing too many questions and getting too many sets of eyes on himself. Because as we know, he didn't just kidnap 17 and 18, but he also kidnapped many other people. Not to mention, we have to factor in the fact that he would have nabbed people that didn't even successfully become androids, not earning an android number or anything. This being said, and getting back to the point, we now need to work out whether they were kidnapped as children or kidnapped as teenagers, and whether or not they're the same age as when and where they were kidnapped, and whether they age as androids during the experiments. And to work this out logically, we have to look at Toriyama's design for Android 18 in Dragon Ball GT, as this is the biggest significant time-lapse that the androids have actually been involved in. Toriyama did do a brief set of the character designs for the beginning of GT before handing it off to Nakatsuru to then do the character designs from then on. Luckily, Android 18 was one of the ones that Toriyama had updated for GT, adding age definition in her cheekbones, and this is how we need to notice that Toriyama clearly envisioned the androids aging as time went on, even as artificial humans. And not to mention that Krillin stating multiple times during all the dubs that 18 is literally a human, but just with cyborg updates, implying that she can still have children and live a normal life. This doesn't, however, mean that they're aging at the same pace as everybody else, and we don't know if it's drastic changes in appearances or how long it takes. We don't really have a whole lot to go on other than the fact that we see slight aging over the course of the show, and that we don't see old 17 and 18 in flash forwards and in time skips that they involve panning as an old lady during Dragon Ball GT. So it's fair to imagine that they age and that they die as people normally would do. But going on that basis, I think it would make sense that it would have had to have been kids when they were kidnapped, or at least resembling a similar stature to Kid Goku when they were kidnapped by Gero. We see many bike gangs displayed during this free crime period of time in the anime, causing issues on the street, etc. And in the past it's been implied that Toriyama liked to imagine that they were notorious delinquents prior to their kidnapping. So this really would create good reason for them being out and about on the street during this period of time. So this logically is the best, and at least in my mind, the only time frame I think Gero could have actually pulled this all off and kidnapped them. I've talked for quite a long time now, and I want to pass this over to my guests to get their opinions, but Mark, what are your thoughts on the theory I've just relayed?
The only reason I have any real doubts about your perception of this is, while it lines up in the timeline, Piccolo Daimao kind of happens almost immediately after Goku single-handedly takes out the Red Ribbon Army. Dr. Gero is obviously really mad about this and maybe even planning his revenge, but it's so quick after, and we know that there are so many other androids that he must have made. I mean, taking it into account, you got 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. He's obviously making these in some kind of a progression and changing his ideas as he goes. So,
well, we are aware from what was spoken about in the show that basically those little ladybug spy robots were spying on Goku when he fought Tenshinhan at the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai. So we know that he was already planning his revenge around this.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I'm not entirely sure how he, and that's Cell. So like that was Cell and the androids and everybody around that. So like I would just say that even though the timeline makes sense and it's easy to sit there and say, well, this is a huge shakeup in the way that the world worked for at least the time being and gave him the opportunity to do this, and they would have grown up into it. I've never really thought that was the case. I always just thought that sometime he was collecting information while he was building androids. Like androids like 16, who is on par with Imperfect Cell. And then he was building, at some point he realized that 16 wasn't going to work, and especially since 16 is, in the image of his son, who was lost in the Goku's destruction of the Red Ribbon Army, or at least that's what I remember. Then
that's
he kind of
been implied,
yeah. Then he goes off and does something else, and that's where he got them. And this was sometime, I would say it makes a lot more sense to be sometime during the 5-year time skip from the ending of Dragon Ball into Dragon Ball Z. And well, even though it doesn't really work with your timeline, he gets these kids, and I think he starts manipulating them so they age differently. Because if you're only going off of GT to say, like, okay, these are how these people age, it's kind of hard to say. Because, yes, 18 does get a little bit older, but 17 looks the exact same.
But 17's design wasn't revised by Toriyama.
Yeah, of course. And then you also have, Super doesn't really change any of this. Nobody ages in Super, so it's hard to say whether or not they even age and how they age in comparison to everybody else, and literally everything like that. I understand what you're talking about. You're going directly off of what Toriyama thinks of these characters that he created and how they age, so I guess that makes sense, and that's...
Just before I kind of chuck the ball over to MJ to get his thoughts on it, I kind of wanted to just mention the fact that, how likely do you think it is that Dr. Gero would continue to try and improve his androids around the time before Goku had actually destroyed the Red Ribbon Army? Because obviously you had, the Arnold Schwarzenegger themed ones and all this kind of stuff. But if he didn't see there was any issues with it, would he have continued to try and improve them?
No, I think so, because this is a guy who's been improving. Like, he had contingency plans after contingency plans after contingency plans. Like, Cell wasn't supposed to be made in his lifetime. He literally made himself into an android. Like, this guy was tinkering. Like, that was his thing. Yes, he wanted to kill Goku, but I feel like a better perspective on him is that he just wanted to make something strong. Like, he wanted to make something perfect.
Well, it's an interesting question, because a lot of people over the years have asked just how old they are, just the general idea, because people have wondered if he kidnapped them when Goku was a kid, or if he was already planning his revenge when Goku was a kid, as you mentioned, the spy bots, the spy bugs, if he was already going on this route of vengeance, then when exactly did he start acquiring people to start experimenting on them? When did he start creating these other androids that were past, like the older models that we saw during the Red Ribbon Army arc, establishing on that technology? So it's interesting. I'm kind of in the middle with, a little sandwich action going on here. I'm kind of in the middle because I like your theory, but I kind of also agree a bit more with Mark too, because I think it's just so quick. It feels so sudden, but in between the Red Ribbon Army arc and the Piccolo Daimao story arc. So I can kind of see it probably being in between the time period of Dragon Ball and DBZ. But again, it's really hard to say. One thing that I want to ask that may help elaborate on all of this is, I know recently with Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and the recent, the Cell arc or Cell story in a bridge, had people talking about 16. Do we know exactly when his son was killed, Dr. Gero's son?
As far as I'm aware, they've never really given an exact timeline for the events and when his son would have been killed, but it would make sense that it probably it was either quite a long time prior to that, or it was, as Mark said, around the time when Goku was destroying the Red Ribbon Army. Because of course, if we're to take it into account his designs of Android 21 as well, she's obviously still quite young. But obviously,
Right.
you know, you've got to, as with all the time with Dragon Ball, you've always got to sort of balance the act of what you view to be canonical and not. It's a bit difficult when you talk about families and when somebody's supposed to be born and, you know, this kind of stuff, to take into account what isn't and what is canon. So I think, personally, if you just kind of look at all the available data, I would suggest that probably Mark's timing is as close to the truth as we're going to get.
Well, from my time on forums, you know, Kanji, Reddit, stuff like that, you know, just scrolling, you know, passing the time, I remember reading that people had often thought that they were orphans, you know, going off of the you know, the little hospital theory that you had proposed. And I can kind of see that being the case. I've always just been of the assumption, though, that they were captured when they were like you know kids, you know, like I would say around the age like between 7 to 8, and then they grew, you know, to what they were. I just always kind of assumed that. I never thought so much so that they were babies when they were kidnapped, or just exactly how old they were. But I know one of the theories is that they were orphans of the time when he captured them. You know, the time period being, I'm not too sure, but I do think, you know, the Piccolo Daimao stuff is a bit too soon, but I can see your point on that, because they were already watching a lot of the earlier tournament stuff, and we already know that Jiro was on his route of vengeance during that time period.
Well, you've also got to kind of look at it in a situation of, I don't want to put anybody in the mindset of, okay, you're a child snatcher, think about when the best time to do it is.
Yeah.
But you have kind of got to look at it in the sense that, okay, Piccolo Daimao made all crimes legal. What better opportunity was there for Dr. Jiro to go and find as many specimens that he could work on as possible?
Yeah, not
he
just
wasn't going to get in trouble for it.
Not just children or orphans, but anybody, just, you know, men, adults, whoever, you know, whatever he modeled, or whatever he wanted to groom, whatever he wanted to experiment on, you know.
Well, of course. I mean, he still considered 17 and 18 to be failures. He considered Android 19 and 20 to be his successes, and of course, like Cell, ultimately.
Successes in the way that he wanted to, you know, attack the situation, at least in that timeline, right? So
yeah, like control them.
Yeah, like he wanted control of these creatures, but he also wanted to create something that was perfect. I mean, that's what Cell was all about. And like I said, contingency plans after contingency plans. This guy,
supercomputer in his basement.
Yeah, like and depending on what you're learning or what you look at, like he kept trying. If GT is what you're looking at, he kept trying even after death. This guy is he is very methodical with what he does. He's persistent.
One thing I want to bring up that you guys can't correct me on if I'm wrong. Was it ever stated that they were like criminals or delinquents when he captured them?
That's what that's what MJ was saying, or that's what Kanji was saying.
So
yeah,
what age? What age?
Gang or something like
yeah,
that.
like what age do you think they were when he captured them? I know we're talking more about time periods.
I you know, just to answer the overall question, I really do think that they were the ages that they are now. I think he has slowed down their aging quite a lot. That's just my perspective. I don't know.
It does make sense. It does make sense.
Dragon Ball's aging, and like I said, Super's aging is crazy. I mean, like what was it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't like there was a 17-year gap from the last time we saw Future Trunks? So it's like, or something in Super. So it's like 17-year-old kid to 34-year-old adult, and he looks the exact same.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's some. I seem to remember there being some discrepancy there with actually how much time had passed for Trunks in comparison to how much time. I mean, that doesn't make sense with what we know about how time travel works in Dragon Ball, but you know, it wouldn't be the first time they've gone back and kind of like, you know, spat on whatever it was that they've written before. But the one thing that you do make a lot of sense on is when you say that if they were supposed to be in a bike gang, then they probably wouldn't be young. They probably wouldn't look like kids. They would probably look like they do currently. But the thing is that they do kind of, you know, Goku, when he's a kid, he's like, you know, 14, and he looks like he's about 5. And this is the recurring theme that, as you were saying, aging is weird in Dragon Ball. But people don't really seem to change the way that they look until they get to about 18, with the exception of Gohan. He was one of the only people who aged seemingly naturally throughout the entire show.
I mean, look at Ten Shinhan, dude. He's looked the same for years, like years.
Yeah, and I mean, so it does come down to, when you look at it like that, it makes sense that he would have been kidnapped when they were teenagers, or in their late sort of adulthood. But then it kind of seems as though, for me personally, I kind of feel like we need to underline the fact that even though we refer to them as androids and some people refer to them as cyborgs, they are literally artificial humans. And so that terminology has been coined because you don't want to pin it down to exactly saying, oh, this is a robot, or this was a human, and now it's a mixture of both. It's supposed to be left sort of open so you can look at it in different ways, manipulate it the way that you want to look at it. And it's been left that way, so if they ever bring in new information in the future, they can sort of say, well, they do age because they're not androids, they're not robots, they're not cyborgs, they're artificial humans. So you don't exactly know what's been changed about them, as much as you know that they've had some weird reactors have been put inside them so they can use infinite energy and bombs. And at the same time, we can also look at the fact that they have, from what we see when we look at the X-ray of Android 16, they obviously have steel bones and stuff like that. So it's hard to put it exactly down to what it is, whether they should be able to age or not. As far as the aging process is concerned, where do you stand on this, MJ? Do you think it's likely that they can age? Or...
Yeah, I think they can age, but I do agree with Real to Real that Jiro, amongst his experimentation on them, slowed down their aging. I do think that. I mean, I don't think they have like the lifespan of like like a Saiyan. I don't expect 18 or Namekian. I don't expect 17 to look the way he's gonna look all the way up until like he's 80 something. Yeah. But I believe his aging has slowed, and I think that does make some sense because if they were supposed to be, let's wind the clocks back, man, to what Trunks warned everybody about. Like these guys are supposed to be like fighting machines, you know what I mean? Like they're supposed to be like the ultimate weapon, even though they were called failures. They were one of his better artificial humans, his better androids, and it would make sense for it to slow their aging down. It gives them more time to fight and more time to do stuff,
More time to work on them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the same reason that I think he might have abducted them as being like 14, 15-year-olds, where they still might have looked like Goku and Krillin. To the point where they both still look short and stubby, because he's doing it to the point where I'm thinking, well, I'm going to work on these. I don't know when they'll be finished, so I better work on orphans. I better work on young kids or whatever like that, and then they turn into these fighting machines in their prime. And so, in fact, he actually has worked on them for so long. It's tough to say, but it does seem to come down to, I think we're all in agreement, it probably happens before the Saiyan arc, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it had to have. It had to have because they went to Namek and they don't know anything about Namek, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that does make sense, yeah, because of course they would have had to have known otherwise. So yeah, I mean that does seem to tie in perfectly with the research and being able to sort of work out when I mean, we know at least he'd been plotting his revenge, whether he'd kidnapped or not the Lapis and Lazuli at this point. We know he had been plotting his revenge since before the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai. So between basically Goku destroyed all the Red Ribbon Army, and then Jiro woke up one morning during the Barbar arc and kind of went, "Holy fucking shit, that little dick just destroyed my entire army." And went, "You know what? We got to get back at this guy." So then he went. You know what? He's a kid. Let's abduct some kids to fight another kid. That's the best way to do it. He made a big android with Major Metallotron, and various other androids and stuff he'd created during this point. But you've also got to kind of look at the fact that maybe he looked at the size difference and went, okay, well that's too big. We need to tone it down a bit. So I think that perhaps I'm sticking with my gut feeling is because Jiro, who was so angry with them around that sort of point, he wanted to get straight into it and looked at the time opportunities. Considering the fact I know he was already plotting his revenge against Goku, during the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai, I can only imagine that it still does make sense that as soon as the crime wave was able to be legal, that was the best time for him to go and start doing his kidnapping. So I think I'm probably going to stick with my placement of my timeline ideas, but I appreciate what you guys have been saying, especially with the sort of trying to age them being a part of a bike gang and stuff. It doesn't really make too much sense that they would be little kids. But
Unless
let's
their
be
parents
honest,
were bikers.
it's not the weirdest thing we'd have seen in Dragon Ball.
No,
I'm pretty
sure.
sure there's some kids in bike gangs and stuff in Dragon Ball that we actually see during
What
the
if?
arc.
What
so-
if? What if? And I don't want to get us on another complete tangent, but what if they're part of that like child gang cult that Gohan runs into during the training arc for the Saiyans, and like that's where they were from? Like they
I mean,
were.
it's possible in some ways, because I mean, like,
Because like the oldest kid in that group is a teenager, and how many years go by before, like 3 years, like that would equal out, right? So they're part of that group. I don't want to go into we don't have to go into that.
maybe that little girl with the ginger hair that's in that group, maybe like she's Android 16's sister.
She's
We're
the
getting into
future.
a-
No, she's the future Android 21. There.
We've got into a whole new kettle of fish now. Dr. Gero just ain't a child snatcher. He's also various other things from what we're incriminating for him in this video. But any closing statements anyway, MJ?
Nah, dude, that's it, man.
Yeah.
I'm a sticking between you guys. It's cozy in the middle. So.
No,
What
yeah,
about you, Mark?
no, that's my last closing statement. Maybe they're from that kid gang that was living on their own.
It makes sense, and it's a nice way to close the video. But guys, let me know your comments, your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm really eager to find out where you guys think it could be placed. If we've missed any information out during this, let us know, because it's very easy to miss timeline place a lot of this stuff. There is so much that has gone on in Dragon Ball, and so many retroactive continuities to go back and sort of go, okay, this is exactly where it happened. Because obviously, as we all know, the truth of the matter is they weren't kidnapped. They were just created out of complete thin air to be androids. So we're just trying to make sense of the timeline. So you guys, if you think of anything else, let us know in the comment section down below. Be sure to go and check out MJ's channel and Mark's channel. I'll have them in the descriptions section down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye!